Hey everybody, my name is Anthony Junio and I'm the co-founder and CEO of B4Grad. We make it super easy for students to organize, create, and share their study materials. I wanted to start a new video series for those that I've connected with on LinkedIn, potentially users that might even be interested just out of curiosity about my story and the story behind B4Grad. And I wanted to post these videos not just to LinkedIn, but also to YouTube and potentially other social media channels like Twitter, perhaps, or Facebook. And this would just be a great way to actually communicate with potential investors, those who already have invested in the company. Once we're finished our closing our current round, and also for any advisors we bring on board, members of our board of directors, etc. And of course for our core team itself, right? So I just wanted to kind of start off this series with just answering a question that's sort of an obvious one. Why did I start building B4Grad? What motivated me to actually start building this business? I think the key thing to realize is B4Grad was not the first entrepreneurial venture I did, right? So when I was 18, I was just itching to start a business of some kind. And this was when I was just starting my undergrad at Western University. And I remember at that time I was still learning like the ins and outs of iOS development. So I was trying to understand, how do you post an app to the App Store? How do you, you start with a blank canvas. How do you turn that into an interactive piece of software, right? And ultimately it just comes with learning a lot of the iOS SDK, the Swift programming language, which was very new at the time. I think it was just announced that year. And so more or less, I started building this, it didn't really have a name. It was a productivity app that was sort of a gamification of productivity. So the idea was you would collect experience points and you would mark things as completed on your to-do list. And the idea was relatively simple, but I didn't really think too much about the design, the vision. It was really just a way to teach myself how to program, really, or how to code in that iOS environment, because it was the first mobile app I was building. So I launched this product to the App Store, and I learned a lot actually building this app. I actually called it Delightful. That was the name I went with at the time. It was just sort of something that came to mind. And ultimately, it was really interesting. I worked with a graphic artist to do the artwork for it, but ultimately it wasn't something that I was totally 2 feet underwater sort of into it, you know what I mean? It was sort of one of those things where I liked it as a learning experience, but it wasn't something I wanted to do for years and years and years, right? So that was around the time I realized, okay, I know how to build, an interactive productivity product. Maybe I could use these skills to build something that really has legs, that really can be, usable now and far into the future, and be a big business someday. And so I brainstormed different ideas, and I realized that in the education space there was a lot of opportunity. A lot of the top grossing apps on the education category were not nearly as high grossing as in the lifestyle section or the health and fitness section of the App Store. And so what this told me was this was a category that was very largely underdeveloped relative to those fields. There was also the health category. So there's fitness, and then there's also health separately, and health was another one I thought about, but I thought education would be a little bit easier to get started in. And so little did I realize I was actually, basically designing and building B4Grad at its very early stages at that time. And, what really drove me to kind of think of this idea, I think, was during my undergrad, and my co-founder experienced the same thing, Joseph. We realized that there's, tons of students were using Facebook, Telegram, even later on things like Discord to actually share things like their lecture notes or their flashcards or whatever it might be, right? So what we realized was, okay, this is an opportunity because a lot of popular startups that come out with Y Combinator, for instance, they often take something that's already being users are already trying to do it, but they're not doing it in a very efficient or easy or intuitive way, right? So that was the initial sort of our idea for B4Grad. And ever since, it's a perfect product to build a big business out of, because you have something that is literally covering all the needs of a student all in one place, but there's so much more to explore from that, right? So it's sort of got a lot of branches that can be kind of mended onto it. And whether we want to go into, obviously we want to go into study materials, but then we could also go into tutoring, or we could go into K-12 curriculum. We could even offer resources for teachers, or for licenses to schools. And so the idea with Before Grad is there's so much flexibility, and there's so many ways we could pivot if something were to go wrong. And so that's really what, these are the reasons why I really felt invested into the project, and also why I brought on board my co-founder Joseph. We brought on a back-end engineer, Anish, and also most recently our advisor, Jeff Hoagman, who brings a great deal of experience with him working in the ed tech space. All right, so I don't want to get this video too long, right? I'm going to film a wide series of just sort of answering questions, telling my story, and also telling the story behind Before Grad. So this will be sort of episode 1. And if you're still listening, I appreciate the time you take. And if you're somebody who is interested in learning more about Before Grad, feel free to reach out. Our company email address, the one the whole team has access to, is contact@beforegrad.com. Feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys.